Did you know that one of Great Britain's biggest heavy metal bands of all time, Saxon, was once a signed artist releasing an album and a single under Games Workshop? This video is about one of Games Workshop's biggest and weirdest sidesteps, a foray into the music industry. How they endeavored into a field they probably shouldn't have, threw heaps of money at artists, and also how they were part of the downfall of some of these bands. This is going to be a Warhammer journey you do not want to miss. It's time to talk about Warhammer Records. Yes, in the early 90s, Games Workshop took a leap into the music industry and formed their own record label, named Warhammer Records, where they, over a couple of years, released albums and singles from a couple of British rock and metal bands. Little is today written about this bold endeavor, and it's difficult to get anyone involved in this project to talk about it. But today, we're at least gonna try to dig as deep as we can. So let's travel back to the early 90s, and Games Workshop had just had a few years of raging success with games as Warhammer Fantasy, 40k, Epic and Space Hulk, just to mention a few. Everything Games Workshop touched seems to turn to gold, and Games Workshop saw great potential to grow their business even more. Someone in the office came up with the brilliant idea of starting a record label to release metal and hard rock albums. While this might seem really wacky to some of you, it's not that odd step in the marketing catalog of Games Workshop in the 90s. So we now know that the record label was formed in 1990, but this history actually starts a few years prior to that. You see, already in November 1997, in the 95th edition of White Dwarf, Games Workshop released the single Blood for the Blood God by the English thrash metal band Sabbath. And this unholy alliance came about because Games Workshop saw at a lot of the Warhammer events the audience would be wearing metal t-shirts, and so it was not unreasonable to think that there was a lot of cross potential between the metal scene and the wargaming scene. And to be fair, there were already some bands that had drawn inspiration from the Games Workshop IP, so why not make it their own business? Just look at this album from Debauchery. And the White Dwarf Sabbath release must have been well received, because shortly after that, Games Workshop and the Coventry-based death metal band Bolt Thrower came to an agreement allowing the band to use the Games Workshop IP and artwork as a theme for their next metal album. And it sure did help that some of the band members from Bolt Thrower were massive Warhammer fans. The album was named Realm of Chaos, Slave to Darkness, and it's stacked with artworks from Games Workshop. On it you'll find songs with titles such as Through the Eyes of Terror, Plague Bearer, Dark Millennium and World Eater. And how cool wouldn't that be if you're a band member and you're a massive Warhammer fan to be able to use all of this IP for your own release? This album, however, was not part of Warhammer Records. It was released before they had actually started their own label. It was released by Earache Records in 1989. Nonetheless, the album was actually sold through Games Workshop's mail order, and I assume that it was a success because they wouldn't have started working on their own record label. A fun story though, when this album was re-released in 2005, 16 years after the initial release, the record label could not use any of the Games Workshop artworks, and the title of the album was changed, so Slaves to Darkness was removed and it was only called Realm of Chaos. Just a fun side story. But at this point, Games Workshop was tired of not being in the cool kids table and finally started Warhammer Records. And if you were part of that community back then, you probably already saw this coming, because in the early 90s, a lot of the articles in White Dwarf were articles about rock artists and new releases, and there was a lot of advertisement for other rock products in the magazine. Just look at this beauty. Clearly, Games Workshop weren't the only ones that saw synergy between the music and metal scene and Warhammer. And after the Bolt Thrower release, Games Workshop in White Dwarf announced 2 metal and rock releases. The album Tinned Oblivion from the band Bathfish, featuring the vocalist Simon Denby, I probably slaughtered that name, whom we'll return to later in this video, as well as the single Out of Control by the Hungry Trolls. Great band name. However, after this announcement, none of the albums were ever released, as the band Batfish was disbanded and no one has actually told us what happened with the Hungry Trolls. But there was more to come. In June 1990, in the 126th edition of White Dwarf, you could read an article stating that the band Crash and Burn was just about to enter the studio to record a new album, dubbed the first album in Warhammer Records history. The article also stated that Games Workshop were keen to get in touch with more professional rock bands who are into the Games Workshop imagery and lore, because they would like to expand their involvement in rock music. However, again, as time went on, there was never any album released by Crash and Burn on Warhammer Records. Out of the 3 first bands that were signed by Warhammer Records, not a single album was released. It seemed like the record label was cursed and doomed to fail. But shame on him who gives in. Instead, the first album released on Warhammer Records was Oblivion by the band D-Rok, featuring Simon Denby from Batfish, that band that was supposed to be the absolute first release from Warhammer Records. It's not too big of a stretch to assume that some of the material on Oblivion are drawn from the scrapped Batfish album in Oblivion. However, we don't really know. There's not a lot of information on either one of these releases. Released in 1991, Oblivion includes songs as Noise Marine and Steeler's Kiss, and the album was packed with Warhammer artwork. The song Get Out of My Way was also included in the 1993 video game Space Hulk. And most notable, the song also featured a guest appearance by none other than Queen guitarist Brian May. He had met the band while visiting a Games Workshop store with his kids and agreed to come record some riffs on their album. This should be enough for a raging success, right? Well, we're not quite done yet. But first, a short message from this week's sponsor, Squarespace. I know that a lot of you guys out there have your own hobbies, your own businesses, or side hustle. And thanks to Squarespace, it's never been easier to display that online. And the best thing is, it is completely free to try to build your own website. So if you ever had the idea to build something or showcase something online, try it out now using either one of their amazing award-winning templates or use their brand new design intelligence that helps guide you through the entire process of building your own website. Take us as an example. We've used Squarespace now for 5 years, even before we got sponsored by them, to build our own website, showcasing what we do and hosting our own web shop on our website. And it was so easy, you have no idea. I have no programming skills or coding knowledge, and I could do it in like an hour and a half, and I have a beautiful website online. So what are you waiting for? Head to squarespace.com to try to build your own website. When you're then ready to launch that website, go to squarespace.com/Squidmar. Maybe even enter code Squidmar to get 10% off that first purchase of a website and a domain. You're not gonna regret trying it out. Since there was a limit on how many available rock bands there was that already had a Warhammer connection, the record label started broadening their catalog with more typical rock bands. For example, the label put out 2 albums with the Nottingham rock band Wraith and one with the glam punk rockers Rich Rags. They also managed to land the distribution rights for the UK band Saxon. Yes, the Saxon, one of the 80s biggest UK metal bands, and distributed their albums Forever Free and the single Iron Wheel. Thanks to this, Games Workshop managed to put an artwork with a Space Marine biker on the UK release of the album. This fact is just as weird as it is awesome. And this seemed to be the company's memo. Every band that signed with the record label had to use Warhammer artworks. But none of the bands got new artworks made, so they all had to use already existing pieces of Warhammer art. This hadn't been a problem until the band Rich Rags that we just mentioned. You see, the band hadn't read the fine prints of the contract. The band was just happy to finally have a record deal. So when the day came and the album was finally finished, they went furious, realizing that they now had to use a Warhammer artwork and not the regular glam rock tropes as booze, babes and bikes. in a vain attempt to damage control, they finally chose a Gene Stealer's artwork and labeled the album Psycho Deadheads from Outer Space, hoping to grab some nostalgia and atmosphere from the 50s B-movies. That didn't, however, work well. In an interview with Polygon, the band's singer Ian Hunter states, "We had to absolutely compromise. It was the worst thing because everyone who knew us went, 'Love the album, fucking hate the artwork. What were you thinking?'" And the relationship between the band and Games Workshop didn't improve. Because in 1993, when the album was supposed to be released, Games Workshop just decided to postpone the release, despite the fact that the band had already booked a full UK tour to promote the album. And since they had no new album to promote on the tour, the gigs was met with mediocre response. Shortly after that tour, the band was disbanded. Personally, one can imagine all the problems with the record label being quite a major reason why the band decided not to move forward and release any more albums. The fact that Games Workshop never managed to attract any other already established artists, I think, speaks a lot for how the record label was run and how the success of the record label was. I mean, even after the Saxon release, you'd think that you'd see more bigger artists be interested in the record label. But it just speaks a lot of how the record label was viewed by other artists. Or maybe they didn't even try after that. And in the wake of all this, the enthusiasm for Games Workshop to run a record label was at a record low. And as Games Workshop went public in the 90s, there was no longer time to run all of this wacky stuff such as a record label. And so came the end of Warhammer Records. And I think it's safe to say that we'll never again see a record label run out of the Nottingham Games Workshop HQ, never in the future. Personally, I still remember as a 12-year-old when I found that Bolt Thrower album cover and I saw the Saxon release. It had quite a big impact on me as I was just getting into the metal scene and I was still in the Warhammer scene, and seeing how the two married with each other was massive to me. And I can personally see how having a record label could be an amazing marketing tool to get your products out to a completely new audience. But there are good and there are bad ways of releasing Warhammer artworks to new audiences. And I think starting a record label just to do it as a marketing tool for a different product is definitely the wrong way. Although I must admit, I don't know if it was just seen as that or if they had actually plans of starting a record label that would become something huge. From all the information we've read on the internet, it seems like the record label wasn't run by experienced people. There was no old executive from another record company or an A&R that had signed big bands previously. The only connection we found to the music industry is that there seemed to have been a journalist from one of the music magazines in Great Britain that worked for Games Workshop for a short period, but that ended quite quickly. In all honesty, it seems like this whole business was done half-heartedly. Yes, we have heard that Games Workshop threw massive amounts of monies into this project, marketing the bands in bigger rock magazines, giving them decent budgets to record their albums, funding tours, and even giving royalties on albums that hadn't even recouped their advance yet. But a lot of this also speak of how naive they were to the music industry. Just throwing money at an artist is not going to guarantee success. And it's also kind of telling that out of all of the releases, not a single one of them has a new original artwork made for that album. So the bands had quite a lot of limitations in how they could market their own product. Even the record label's logo was just the Warhammer Fantasy logo with the word fantasy removed. They didn't even bother to add the word records to the logo. There are so many questions that I would have loved to have answered. We have tried reaching out to artists as well as people that worked for Games Workshop with Warhammer Records during this period. Most of these people we haven't managed to get hold of. The ones that we have managed to get hold of has politely declined being part of the video or just simply started ghosting us once we asked them questions. But I would have loved to have a talk with some of these people to hear what their dreams was for the record labels. What went wrong? What went well? Maybe even more importantly, what parts of Warhammer Records was actually successful and what was the reason for its demise? And how the hell did Games Workshop manage to sign Saxon? That to me is kind of like a mind-blown moment. But unfortunately, outside of the White Dwarf articles, there isn't much information out there. But maybe some of you guys have information. Let us know down in the comment section. Maybe you were in one of the bands, or maybe you worked for Games Workshop back then. Smash like if you want to see more of these videos. Subscribe if you want to see more of our other videos. Massive thanks to all of our patrons. You guys are amazing. And our sponsor, Squarespace. Thank you guys for sticking with this channel through thick and thin. Peace.